Kimberly from Fat Quarter Shop, and today we're going to do a charm pack challenge. We're going to take 3 charm packs. Today I'm using Fresh Fig Favorites by Fig Tree and Moda, and we're going to take these 3 charm packs and we're going to make a quilt. It's going to be totally scrappy. It's super fun. I'm going to time myself so we can see how long it takes, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But what you need to start is you need 100 5-inch squares. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Today what I have starched all of my stacks. Now when you make this quilt, you can either start with 5-inch squares that are not starched or trimmed down or anything, or you can starch each charm pack and then trim it down. And that's what I'm going to do. It's totally optional. And what I'm going to start with is I'm going to show you how to make one block. And there's 4 blocks in the quilt, so for the first block you need 25 squares. Now again, if you're just going to use a charm pack and you're not going to trim it down, that will work totally fine. But you can see when I starch, one side stays 5 inches and one side shrinks a little bit. So that's why I'm trimming down to 4.5. I get better luck with starching, and I fully saturate the fabric and let it dry for 24 hours. I just find that I get a little bit better result with starched fabric. So I'm going to start, and with 25 of the squares, I'm going to trim them down to 4.5 inches square using a Creative Grids ruler, and I can see that this one didn't cut down correctly, so I'm going to fix that. And we're going to make 1 block, and then from that you can copy to make 3 more, and we're going to see how long it takes. It shouldn't take too long. It's a very scrappy pattern, and it's going to be really fun and quick, and I think you're going to like the results. And one thing you're going to notice is I am not going to use the charcoal prints in this, so I put those at the bottom. But I think even with 3 charm packs and taking the black charcoal out, you'll still have enough. And the next step is super easy. We're going to make a 25 patch, totally scrappy. Not even pay attention to where the fabric goes. So I'm going to put 5 charm packs wide by 5 charm packs tall. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. Then I'm going to add the 3rd row with a 1/4 inch seam, add the 4th row, 1/4 inch seam, 5th row, 1/4 inch seam, and then I will have one big piece, and I'll show you how to iron, and then we'll go back and sew it all together, and that will be our beginning of our first block. So from here, I'm going to leave all of this chain together, and I'm just going to start adding to the right side. So I will just keep that together, open this, and just keep adding. So here what I have is I have 5 rows by 5 columns, and they're all chain pieced together. And what I'm going to do is go to the iron and I'm going to press them all opposite directions. So press to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, and to the right, so all of my seams nest. So on this quilt, I'm not going to worry about setting my seams because they're chain pieced together. I'm just going to press each one opposite directions. So it's a little bit harder to iron with it chain pieced together, a little bit harder than normal, but it's going to make the next step easy. And what I'm going to do here is go row by row. And so I will pin each intersection together. Now I'm not going to even cut apart the chain pieces. Those will stay there. And I'm going to pin on every intersection, sew the seam, and then move to the next one. Yeah, 5 rows, 4 seams. And it'll be super quick, and then you're going to see how we chop this up to make our Charm Pack challenge. So this is how it looks, totally scrappy. I have all this red going this way, but you're gonna see in a minute it's not gonna matter. And here I'm going to iron everything nice and flat. It's kind of a bigger block, so I will set my seam now and then press to one side. It doesn't matter which way you press on this quilt. You can press any way you want. So from here, it actually does not matter what the finished block size is. So if you started with 5-inch squares or 4.5-inch squares, it doesn't matter. Don't even look at the size of the block. What I'm gonna do here though is trim the edges just so it's nice and trim. It'll just get any of the little stray strings off. So from here, you're not even going to measure the block. What you're going to do is fold it, find the center and crease, find the center and crease. And just make sure you can see your crease lines. So I can see them. And do the same thing on the other side. So I have found the center points. And I'm going to cut this block here and here. So I'm going to cut the block into 4 blocks. And so I'm just going to line up my ruler here at the top and make sure I'm on that crease. Do the same thing on the other side. So now I have 4 blocks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate 2 of them. I'm going to rotate that one, and I'm going to rotate that one. So now you have 2 small squares on the outside here and 2 small squares on the inside here. Then what I'm going to do is put them back together. I'm going to put them right sides together. Now, of course, you could mix and match these, but I think it's going to look cute where I just keep the block all together. And I'm just going to pin at the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam down here, keep them connected. So from here, I'm going to press 1 to the right and 1 to the left. So I'll press that towards the right. And right here, you can see my pressing isn't that great, so I'll just go back over it. And then press this one to the other side. So from here, you've got it chain pieced together, and all you have to do is pin at the beginning, the end, and 1 seam. None of the other seams are going to touch. So you just put a couple of pins in, sew that last seam, and you've got 1 block done. Now each block uses 25 squares, and we're going to be making 4 blocks today, and this is the first one. We'll just do 1 final press. And here is your first block. So I'm going to go ahead and make 3 more blocks, and then we'll connect the quilt into one. And just remember, if you want to make it bigger, each block you just need 25 squares. So if you want to make 2 additional blocks, you would need 50 squares. So super easy to make this larger if you wanted to.
So here I'm just gonna show you like a time lapse of what I'm doing, and just like a little time lapse of doing the rest of the quilt. I mean, you guys don't want to sit and watch me make a quilt. It would take way too long. So what I'm doing here is just, you know, trimming my charm packs down to 4.5 inches. And like I said, you can leave them at 5 inches. You can kind of do whatever works best for you. I just prefer to do that. So yeah, this quilt's really fun, and I had so much fun doing this one just because it's totally different than anything we've done before. So just cutting charm packs, cut, making a big old mess with the little things on the side. And I'm cutting like 4 or 5 squares at a time. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm using a little rotating mat, and it's going to take me quite a while because there's so many squares. So here I just have my design board, and I'm just going to lay out my fabrics. And kind of when I'm laying fabrics out, I'm just trying to, this is so scrappy that it really doesn't matter if fabrics touch. But what I'm trying to do is just do a mix of medium, light, dark, yellow, blue, green, red, kind of just mix and match the colors. And you'll see that, sometimes I don't want the same print to touch, but in the end, it really doesn't matter. But what you're going to see in a little bit is when I did the first 2 blocks, used too few lights. And so when I get to these next couple of blocks, you're not going to see it yet, but you'll see it when I start piecing, because on one of these boards, I actually do 4x4 instead of 5x5 and don't catch it. So I don't have enough light. So I ended up having to add a 5th charm pack, which you really don't need to. I just did it because I didn't notice it until I started sewing. So you'll kind of see that mistake, but I think it's this next board that I accidentally, and I have too many backgrounds. And if I would have spread them out more in the first 2 blocks, I would have been in a better spot. But since I did that first block and it was already sewn, I was kind of stuck. So way too many lights. And I'm kind of bad about not using lights very often. So here you can see I'm trying to move lights from other blocks to move my lights around, but in the end, I still end up having to open another charm pack because I just end up not having enough. But here I am just trying to switch out, trying to make the 1 charm pack work, which, I did my best, but you could definitely make it work. I just get super picky about the fabric placement, even though I really shouldn't. I still just overthink, and I just did not want to use the blacks, or I guess they're charcoals rather. So I end up using another charm pack, and I think at this point I probably get frustrated and just say, you know what, I'm just going to stitch 1 block. But I'm trying my best to make the 3 charm packs work, but it's just my obstinance to that black. I don't have any of that in my home decor, and I like to put little projects like this. I have a large square table in my living room, and I like to put a quilt down and then put something on top of it. And so I didn't want black because I just really didn't match my house. So here I am just chain piecing using a 1/4 inch seam. And I wish I could sew this fast in real life. That would be so awesome. And I'm just chain piecing. When I do that, I just leave like a couple of stitches in between. If you don't, like right here, if you don't do a couple of stitches, it will kind of bunch up on you. So yeah, I'm just trying to do the same thing I did in the block tutorial, 5x5 with a couple of stitches in between. Just press any which way, really doesn't matter. I mean, at the very end, you'll have to rotate some blocks so that it matches, or you'll have to just move some stuff around, but this one doesn't really matter. But yeah, this is kind of a very soothing or very therapeutic quilt because you're not having to think. You're just building. I just kind of think of it like you're just building little blocks. So from here you can see everything's still connected together by those little stitches in between, and I just stitch, or I guess I just press one direction, one the next. And if it bugs you that there's, because sometimes it's hard to press when you have those connected, you can always take them apart. I just think on something this small and easy, it's just easier to leave them all together, and then you don't have to worry about them because you've already put them together. You already know they kind of match. So I just press opposite directions. And then here there's 4 little intersections that I pin. I just pin in each intersection and at the beginning and the end. And you're gonna see here, I'm just sewing all my rows together. I do it all at one time and then iron that all at one time at the end, if that makes sense. So just do all my seams at one time and just kind of keep building, like I said. So now I have it, and I'm just going to press each seam and then just press one direction. Doesn't really matter which way you press, and I'm just going to keep doing that until I have all my blocks done. And so I'm just going to sew, 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 stitch, 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 iron, iron, iron. Fun, fun, fun. And here I am trimming the edge of the block like I showed you before. And that's just an extra step, totally not needed, just something I do. And then you're just gonna chop that block in half and you're gonna get a cool effect. But yeah, I'm just using, I mean, you could use the lines on your ruler if you wanted to. I kind of just felt like the creases were the easiest way to do that. And then you just rotate two of the pieces, top left, bottom right, and just sew those together. And even this one, the thing I was thinking about when I made this is if you rotated the wrong one, and the end of the quilt design, I don't even think you would notice. So this is kind of one of those forgiving quilts where if you make a mistake, you probably won't even notice. So just press one to one side. And this one, I am doing one block at a time, and sometimes I'll do all 3 blocks at a time. On this one, I think it was because I was kind of getting short on my charm packs. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I was probably trying to think out a solution. And then that is a fourth of the quilt. And always remember, when we give you these quilts, you can always make more blocks, fewer blocks. You could do a table runner. And then here I am just building the next block. So here I am pressing, and I did want to let you guys know this quilt only took me 2 hours, and that's even with filming. So if I was at home doing this, I could probably get this done in maybe hour and a half, something like that. So pretty easy. This would make a great baby shower gift. You could do cute little baby prints. It would even work in flannel. and super cute, super easy. Love to do these easy quilts where you don't have to think much, and it's even easier if you don't cut your squares down to 4.5. Now, if you have a layer cake, you could always cut your layer cake into 4s and make it with 1 layer cake instead of 3 charm packs. That's always an option. And it's a great way to use up all of your scraps. And one thing about this design is there's no waste of fabric. So there's no corner squares that you're chopping off. So you're basically using every little bit of fabric. There's no fabric waste at all in this one. And some people really do not like any type of fabric waste. So this is a great one if you're one of those people. So right there on the left, you can see I kind of got a duck pleat when I was pressing. So I used some spray starch on top to get that little crease out. And anytime I get something where I cannot get the crease out, I will add starch just to kind of wet the fabric to get it a little bit even so it's nice and smooth. So super easy, and you'll see that as I do these blocks, I put them right sides together and then just chain sew them together, and then I'm just going to press them. So just the same thing, I'm just kind of redoing the same thing over and over, but I'm making it where it's efficient and where I can keep all the fabrics together and not get anything lost, so I don't have to like think about, now right there I ran out of thread somehow, my bobbin ran out, so I had to go back and put a new bobbin in, which that happens to the best of us, right? And see, by keeping that little chain there, it's easy. I don't misplace where anything goes. So super fun. I hope you guys try this, and I hope to see a lot of these quilts on social media. It's always fun to see if I make something, if you guys make it, and then what you guys make it in, because you'll always make it in different fabrics. And it looked really cute if you put it in like fabrics that were really, really small and dainty, since they would really show up. Now this is where I'm trying to do the block 4, and I just do not have enough fabric. So I did have to cut into another charm pack. And if you use the full charm pack and use all that charcoal, you're not gonna have an issue. And you can see right here, when I went to sew, I accidentally had 4 instead of 5, so that's where I kind of got off. I just kind of got, that happens. It's going to happen at home too. So what I did is I just kind of went back and figured out what I was doing, and then went back to making sure it was 5 by 5. And so, sometimes when you're in the middle of the project, you have to improvise. And I think the main thing when you are working on something and you get frustrated, just keep going forward. Don't take it as a negative. No quilt is going to be 100% perfect. I mean, I could have got totally frustrated at that, and I just said, you know what? I just need another charm pack. And if I didn't have another charm pack at home, that's fig tree fabric. I'm sure that in my bucket of fabrics that I have, my 5-inch squares, there would have been some fig tree I could have pulled in. And I would have caught it if I would have laid everything all out in the first step, but I didn't. So, and then here, I think I even ran out more. So I had to do it again. So, I mean, I think I just got overwhelmed and just had to get more. I think that I had too many backgrounds still. So I needed less backgrounds on that last row. So yeah, I'm on block 4, and this quilt, like I said, took me about 2 hours. Super fun, super easy, and the also good thing is I only used pins when I put the rows together. So you'll save time by not having to pin every little segment. Now you could pin if you want to. Because I cut them down and starched them, they're very stiff. So when you starch, it will make your fabric stick together and they won't slide as much as if you didn't starch. So I'm getting to the end. This is my 4th block, and this quilt is 2 blocks by 2 blocks. And you'll see once I finish this block, I'm going to lay everything out and just kind of make sure everything's pressed the right way. So here what I'm doing is I'm laying out the blocks. It's going to be hard to kind of see because the blocks are bigger than the table, but I'm going to put 2 by 2, and that center seam needs to nest. So right there, I'm trying to make sure fabrics don't touch, and I'll rotate my blocks a couple of times. And if I need to, you can press a seam a different way, but just kind of rotate. And right there where my hand is, that's where that seam needs to nest. And if it doesn't, you see, you can just rotate it and see if it does. If it doesn't, you can just change. And I think right here, I just change the pressing so that it will nest. And this quilt's not such a, it's not such a big deal. You could just let it not nest if you wanted to, but right there is where you want it to nest, right where I'm pinning in the center, and then the top. And also, I'm just rotating to get the blocks to look right. And then there you can see I'm keeping them one on top of the other. So when I sew, I'm still chain piecing that together. And you can see as my head pops in there that I have on my headphones, I'm probably listening to some type of true crime. So I kept those together, and sometimes when it might become too bulky, so at some point I might cut those apart, I might not, I can't remember, but sometimes when I get things this big I'll leave them together, sometimes I won't. But keeping it chained together just kind of kept it all in the same spot, and so I just have one seam left. Super easy. Now right there, when I was pressing, I noticed that one of my seams, I hadn't got all the way to a 1/4 inch, and I kind of just looked, it was just a little too thin. So I just went back over the seam and added more so that it would be straight. So that will happen from time to time. And you can see I have lots of fabrics touching, and that's okay. Now another thing you could do is you could do all of these and mix and match the units within the different blocks if you wanted to. So lots of possibilities with this quilt.
I hope you enjoyed watching the Charm Pack Challenge. This quilt took me 2 hours, and the best thing about it is you can make your quilt any size. You just need 100 squares, so you could start with 100 mini Charm Pack squares, 100 layer cake squares. You could start with anything, and you could come out with a quilt just like this, just a different size. So share your quilt using our hashtag, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you next time.